Welcome to the special 50th episode of Pod Me If You Can TV, where we find obscure films with your favourite stars and we discuss them. Today is, for the special 50th episode, a double episode, and it's all about Chuck Norris, Lloyd.
Can't wait.
Cue the opener. My half of the podcast deals with one film, Lloyd will deal with another DVD. Mine is Eye for an Eye, the Chuck Norris 1981 classic, where Chuck Norris plays a vigilante cop called Sean Kane, which is a very cool name. I can't believe Chuck Norris is 74 years old this year, but anyway.
He looked amazing in Expendables too.
There you go. Pretty much, in Eye for an Eye, if you haven't guessed already, it is a revenge story. Eye for an Eye because his partner is killed 5 minutes into the film and he has to resign from the police department. Pretty much the circumstances are murky, but his death is fairly gory, the partner, in that he's shot and then struck by a car and then burns alive in an explosion brought on by the car crashing into him. It's pretty full on for 5 minutes in. I'll just say before I go on, this entire film is on YouTube. You can watch Eye for an Eye for free. Nobody's taken it down yet. So, Richard Roundtree is in this film. Now, he's the original Shaft, and he plays the boss. He's the police chief, and he's all like, you better have a whole hell of a lot of answers. You know, he calls him reckless. It's a classic angry boss on the police force stuff, leading him to become the vigilante rogue ex-cop he needs to be to solve this crime. So look, pretty much 15 minutes into the film, I'm going to say it, Chuck Norris is on some kind of Total Gym equipment. He's spokesperson for the Total Gym. It's not exactly a Total Gym because it's 1981, but it's something, you know, that sort of you can see it's something he's brought in. He throws off his shirt, so shirtless Chuck Norris, ladies, and tells his dog, who is following him around, to make himself useful. And the dog picks up his sweaty shirt and brings it to the clothes basket, which is interesting. He's got kind of a Ron Burgundy Baxter, you know, relationship with his dog. It makes him seem a little bit crazy, but it's okay. He gets himself a phone call from a reporter friend named Linda, and she's all, you know, I've got information for you. I can, you know, help you solve your partner's murder. And then she's chased by a professional wrestler, Lloyd, whose wrestling name is Professor Toru Tanaka, who smashes a Volkswagen in one memorable scene. He kind of picks it up and then he drops it again. This was his first film, but he went on to star in 39 action films, including Arnold Schwarzenegger films Running Man and Last Action Hero.
Oh, cool.
So he's quite a memorable big character. Wrestlers go on to have very nice careers, and we've already had one wrestler on our podcast. We had the Paul White movie, which, you know, you can look up in our previous episodes. Knucklehead. He's the Big Show for wrestling fans. Look, there's a scene where three guys attack Chuck Norris, and I have no idea why. It's like there was an action scene required. He's on a rooftop, and he kills them all. They're the Triad. It's like a Chinese group, you know.
The gangsters,
people will know the Triad. Yep. The thing about this film as well, he's clean-shaven, Chuck Norris. It's odd. He looks like he has a baby face. It's not the Chuck Norris you're used to. I'd never seen this film before watching it for this podcast, so it was fascinating to me. I'd never seen a clean-shaven Chuck Norris. Had you, Lloyd?
I think so, but a long, long time ago. I might have seen Eye for an Eye a long time ago when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, everybody says it's a classic, so the reason I thought I'd delve into it was that you get Richard Roundtree as well as Christopher Lee, who people will know from being the man with the golden gun or Count Dooku from Star Wars. This is him as a younger man. He plays the head of the TV station, Morgan Canfield, and he denied the police access to anything to do with the reporter because she dies. Spoilers. But what happens is he goes to the TV station, Chuck Norris, and in my favourite scene, he goes into some kind of presentation on air, department, and he goes in and there's nobody sitting there. There's nothing going on. He starts immediately pushing buttons in this unmanned studio. And he starts hitting them. Nothing happens. He keeps hitting buttons until a girl, the love interest, walks in and says, "Not that one. That one could put us off the air." I don't know why they leave this button unmanned that could put them off the air, but anyway. So pretty much because of Chuck Norris's bad guy reputation, he's such a great cop and whatever, the head of the station, Christopher Lee's character, allows him access to tapes and things that Linda had for that reason. It's just a bit bizarre. But anyway, it's almost as if he's working the case. Even though he's not a policeman anymore, he's been denied nothing. He's at the morgue identifying bodies. His former colleagues are chatting to him about the case and helping him. It's, it's a bit ridiculous. But if you can just go with that, it'll be fine. There are several flashbacks where Chuck Norris is boxing or he's sleeping and he's remembering his partner, really just to flesh out the middle of the film. But there's this bit where he has a nightmare and the love interest who's sleeping over, she throws herself at him in this film. Throws herself at Chuck Norris. And there's a scene where he wakes up in a cold sweat and she just starts kissing him, just cause. She just kind of throws herself at him. It's hilarious. Christopher Lee is the main villain of this film. It is not a surprise at all to anybody because he's, top billing. He's the guy who's, leering in the background.
He was behind it all along.
Exactly.
You killed my father.
No, Chuck Norris. He has the best line. He says, "I understand, since you left the force, you no longer carry a weapon." And then one of his henchmen kind of buddies says, "He is a weapon," regarding Chuck Norris. There's some classic karate in this, some classic kung fu, if you will. There's a great scene towards the end of this where he knocks two guys out by butting their heads together.
Yep.
But he barely, it's the softest tap. They should have done another take. I just wanted to highlight that.
It sounds like a very violent movie, like people are dying actually from the combat.
Yeah, there's non-stop deaths. The final shots of the film are them walking away towards credits, and in the background is just bodies everywhere.
I got to see this.
Yeah, it's quite hilarious. The finale of the film, which I won't completely spoil, but the last 10 minutes, which you could watch and probably understand most of the film, all the police are running downhill in this it's really bad tactics. They're running downhill towards the bad guys, and the bad guys have much better cover, much better ground. It seems impossible that the good guys, the cops led by Richard Roundtree, will be able to get them. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's just a bit hilarious. And the final best choreography, best fight scene, Chuck Norris fights the wrestler who has just all the good stuff, all the best stuff in the last 10 minutes of the film. And it's almost all filler in the middle to get there. And defeating Christopher Lee, who has the girl at gunpoint. It's all a lot of kung fu, a lot of death. If that's your thing, this is the film for you. But it holds up okay considering it's 1981. Chuck Norris is, Chuck Norris. If you like Chuck Norris, you're watching this episode. Eye for an Eye might be your thing.
The Chuck Norris movie I chose to review is called The President's Man, which was a made-for-TV movie that came out in 2000. Since Abraham Lincoln, the president has had an elite Secret Service agent whom he sends to handle only the most dangerous missions. Chuck Norris is Joshua McCord, the current president's man. He is on the verge of retirement and must find and train a new person to take his place. The start of this movie is incredible. The president's wife gets kidnapped in Rio de Janeiro, and with a nod to his second, he sends for Chuck Norris. And the first scene where you really see Chuck Norris, he's having traditional Japanese tea in the backyard of his house. The whole ceremony, he's kneeling down, slowly drinking it, and then somebody comes into frame behind him, and without turning, he goes, "When?" And then we see him deployed in Rio de Janeiro, like he's on this stealth bomber. It's a really cool stunt. He comes in parachuting into Rio de Janeiro, smashes into a hotel, like a really large hotel, takes out all the bad guys, grabs the president's wife and takes her to safety. And the scene reminded me of The Dark Knight, where Batman gets Chow, the money launderer, in China. It's a really cool stunt sequence, and Batman's ripping off Chuck Norris. Who would have known, huh? Now, this action movie is exactly the type of movie I would make if I was in the position of directing straight-to-video action movies. It's a nice little straightforward action film here. And I actually like Chuck Norris. I have nothing against him. I think he's a really nice guy, and he makes, and he does action pretty well with his martial arts background and everything. The only issue I have with him, and I think this applies to all Chuck Norris movies, is that he's too invincible. There's never a moment where he's fully in danger or in physical harm. Like, there's many sequences in The President's Man where the bad guys have got hostages, and maybe we should have seen a lot more of that, like the threat of them killing hostages. But the moment Chuck Norris comes around, it's all over. You know he's going to kill everyone because he's just so invincible. And I think that's why his contemporaries such as Bruce Willis, Wesley Snipes, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, etc. are just regarded to be more appealing, because in their movies they get hurt. Their feet get cut by glass, their face gets smashed to pulp, they get cut up pretty badly. Without the threat of physical violence, I find action scenes pretty boring. I liked President's Man, but it did grow a bit tiresome towards the end because of the invincibility of Chuck Norris. All the stunts in this movie seem to be pretty authentic. There are heaps of really awesome explosions, some cool covert operations. They could have used blue screen or green screen, but I didn't notice it too well. And I wasn't a fan of the score in this movie at all. Like, it was just a huge rip-off of James Bond. I understand the comparison of The President's Man to the character of James Bond, but I think Chuck Norris is such a well-established action hero. The music should have been self-contained rather than an inspiration off another franchise. Just listing some memorable Chuck Norris moments of this movie: walking away from an explosion without looking, spin kicks repeated over and over again, right hand punches repeated over and over again from different angles, and of course that wonderful expressionless Chuck Norris face. Love you, Chuck. I think your action movies are a lot of fun.
That's funny. He gets quite a bit in the user reviews on IMDb about his wooden expressionless face, but I think that's the charm of Chuck Norris, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone's just accepted that character, and he's just gone on to be such a staple in popular media, and I think he's went with it pretty well.
He has, and obviously all the memes and everything that follow Chuck Norris are all very hilarious.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
I'll just ask about the president. How does he hold up in terms of movie presidents?
Well, he's only in the beginning, and he's just some old guy, not a special actor or anything. Like, he does seem like a really likable guy, but he's only in that one scene at the very beginning where he's on the mission to rescue the president's wife. But that's it, so I guess not very memorable at all.
Fair enough. And you recommend this one?
No.
It's got a sequel.
No, it's a made-for-TV movie. It's very cheap. It's fun. Like, if you catch it on cable, like if it's just on, you're surfing the channels and it's all of a sudden on, yeah, just check it out for a bit, but I wouldn't go pay money for it.
Fair enough. All right, guys, so that was the 50th episode of Pod Me If You Can, obviously a Chuck Norris special. You can let us know what your favourite Chuck Norris films are and all your feedback on facebook.com/podmeifyoucan, and on our YouTube channel, which you're currently on, youtube.com/podmeifyoucan. You can find 49 other videos with stars and films that you might not have heard of. They're obscure films and we review them. And Lloyd, looking forward to doing 50 more.
Yeah, I can't wait, Dave. It's been awesome. Thanks, guys.